A rich and arrogant teenager ridicules a humble man in a luxury supermarket, mocking his simple clothes as he looks at expensive items. But what happens next will change everything and teach a lesson that no one in that store will forget. Dwayne Johnson, discreet and observer, witnesses the scene in silence. And when he decides to act, his gesture turns lives in a way that no one could predict. What really defines a person's value? The money she has, or how to treat others? Today's story will prove that respect and humility are much more valuable than any price label. It was a busy afternoon in one of the most sophisticated supermarkets in the city. Runners filled with bright shelves showed the most expensive and exclusive products. Elegant customers walked around, carrying strollers full of luxurious items. Among all that ostentation, a man entered calmly, wearing simple clothes, worn jeans, and a basic T-shirt. His presence went unnoticed for most, except for a group of teenagers who were near the entrance. In their midst was Ryan Carter, a rich young man who loved to show off his fortune. When he noticed the humble man walking through the market, he smiled in a mocking way and turned to his friends. "Look at that," he said, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. "What is such a guy doing in a place like this? Does he think he can buy something here?" The friends laughed, their voices echoing through the supermarket. Dwayne Johnson, the man they were ridiculed, passed through the group without saying a single word. His countenance remained serene but attentive. He kept walking to a shelf where he took an imported coffee package and analyzed the packaging calmly. Ryan, encouraged by the laughter of his friends, decided to go further. He walked to Dwayne, his expensive shoes echoing against the shiny ground. Her sarcastic smile didn't disguise her intention to humiliate even more. "So, friend, did you get lost?" he said, pretending to be sympathy. "I think the discount session is some streets below." Dwayne turned slowly to him. His eyes were firm, but his expression remained controlled. "I'm exactly where I need to be," Ryan laughed, crossing his arms. "Ah, is it?" teased. "And what do you want to buy here?" He pointed to exaggerately for corridors full of sophisticated products. "Because look, it doesn't look like your shoes match such a market." The scene caught the attention of an employee who hesitated before approaching. She realized what was happening, but didn't know exactly how to act. Little did Ryan know that, in a few moments, he would receive the greatest lesson in his life. The store employee hesitated. "I didn't know if I should intervene or just move away, but something in the man's serene presence made her look up close. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked politely. "Yes," said Dwayne Johnson, ignoring Ryan Carter's mocking look. "I'm looking for a pair of shoes. Something classic, well-adjusted." Ryan released a loud laugh, drawing the attention of other customers. "A pair of shoes? For you?" said, laughing even more. "Man, this is gold. Do you know how much these shoes cost?" Dwayne looked at him for a brief moment before returning to the employee. "I would like to try this model," he said, pointing to a sophisticated leather shoe. The attendant realized that this situation was far from normal. He nodded and led him to the test area. As Dwayne entered the dressing room, Ryan approached the counter with a mischievous smile. "You should take a look at the shelves before letting him leave," he told the employee in a provocative tone. "People like that don't come in to buy, get in to steal." The employee was visibly uncomfortable with the comment, but before she could answer, Dwayne returned from the dressing room. The shoe fit perfectly. His elegant cut contrasted with the firm and controlled posture of the man who wore him. Dwayne looked at the employee with a small smile. "This one is perfect." Ryan's laughter ceased instantly. He did not expect that man to seem so confident, so serene. For a moment it was speechless, but its arrogance soon returned. "Great attempt," he said, crossing his arms. "But now comes the fun part. Let's see if you can really pay for it." Dwayne did not react to the provocation, just walked calmly to the counter. "I'll take this one," he told the employee. "And a few more too." The silence took over the environment. Ryan widened his eyes. His friends looked at each other, not knowing if that was a joke. "A few more?" repeated Ryan, dropping a nervous laugh. Dwayne ignored the comment and pointed to another section of the store. "I would like these shirts too. And these jackets." The employee hesitated for a moment, then began to gather the items. Ryan couldn't hold back anymore. "This is ridiculous," he exclaimed, approaching Dwayne. "You can only be playing with me. Do you know how much this costs? Or will you simply try to leave without paying, hoping no one notices?" Dwayne turned to him, his unshakable look. "Do you always judge people for what they wear?" Ryan was momentarily unanswered but tried to disguise. "Come on," he said, trying to laugh. "It doesn't look like someone like you shopping here, let's be honest." Dwayne didn't answer, just turned to the employee. "Can you register everything for me?" The attendant began to scan the items, her hands slightly trembling. "That will give a total of $15,000, he said, his voice slightly hesitant. Ryan laughed. $15,000. He moved, shaking his head. "This will be good." But what happened next left everyone speechless. Dwayne opened her black leather wallet and handed her card without hesitation. The employee took the card carefully and passed the system. For a moment, the store was absolutely silent. The only sound was scanners recording the transaction. "Approve payment." The employee's voice echoed around the place, breaking the tension. Ryan was paralyzed. His friends, who once laughed with him, now exchanged surprised looks. "Wait, what?" Ryan babbled. His face was pale. How do you—" Dwayne gave a little smile. Eyes can fool. While the employee was starting to pack the items, Dwayne looked at Ryan one last time. "You may want to think twice before judging someone for what you wear." Ryan was silent. For the first time that afternoon, he had nothing more to say. The owner of the store, who watched everything from afar, finally approached. "Mr. Johnson," he said, extending his hand. "It's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for choosing our store." Ryan Carter was still. The shock took over his face. "Wait, Mr. Johnson," he murmured, almost without voice. "How? Dwayne Johnson?" Dwayne squeezed the owner's hand with a slight smile. "Thanks for the excellent service," he said, looking at the employee who helped him. She returned her eyes, a little thrilled. "It was a pleasure, sir." Meanwhile, Ryan couldn't believe what was going on. He stood, trying to soothe the situation. Dwayne took her bags and began walking toward the exit. But before leaving, he stopped for a moment and looked straight at Ryan. "I hope you learned something today." And then he left the store, leaving Ryan and his friends in absolute silence. The atmosphere remained tense. The friends, who once laughed along with Ryan, now avoided their gaze. No one knew what to say. "Dwayne Johnson," Ryan murmured almost to himself. "How did I not realize?" His brain turned the scene over and over. For the first time, he felt a genuine shame for what he did. The employee who had watched everything approached him. "You know," he said, his voice firm, but without aggressiveness. "You shouldn't really treat people like that." Ryan looked at her, still stunned. I thought," she crossed her arms. "Did you think he wasn't worth his time because he didn't seem rich? But guess what? He has just taught us all a lesson." Her words weighed on Ryan. He always proud of the confidence he conveyed, but at that moment he felt small. Meanwhile, outside, Dwayne walked calmly through the mall, still holding the bags. Before leaving completely, he stopped near a small food court. There, a little girl sat with her mother, holding a doll while her mother had some notes in the cashier. Dwayne watched the scene for a moment before approaching. He lowered to stare at the girl and smiled. "This doll is very beautiful," he said gently. The little girl squeezed the toy against her chest and smiled. "Thanks." Dwayne looked at her mother, who seemed surprised to see him there. "Can I help you with something?" he asked, his voice warm and genuine. The woman hesitated. "Oh, you don't have to. We're just trying to raise money to buy a birthday gift for her." Dwayne nodded, thoughtful. Then he opened his wallet and handed a card to his wife. "Here," he said. "Buy something special for her today." The woman's eyes widened. "Oh, I can't accept it. It's very—" Dwayne smiled. "Please, it's the least I can do." He looked at the little girl and blinked. "Remember, kindness is a gift that costs nothing." Across the mall, Ryan and his friends were still watching the scene. Seeing Dwayne's humility and generosity, Ryan felt a tightness in his chest. He always thought celebrities were cold and distant, but there was a man who really cared about people, regardless of status or appearance. Ryan hesitated before taking a few steps forward. "Mr. Johnson." Dwayne turned calmly. "Yes?" Ryan took a deep breath. For the first time, he felt the weight of his own attitudes. I just wanted to apologize," said softly. "By the way I acted in the store. I shouldn't have judged you that way." Dwayne studied Ryan for a moment before giving a slight smile. "Excuses accepted." Ryan sighed, relieved, but Dwayne added something that made him reflect even more. "But remember, it's not me that you need to apologize." Ryan frowned, confused. "The judgment we make of others only reflects our own insecurities." The words hit Ryan tightly. I understand," he said, his voice almost a whisper. Dwayne nodded, gave a little smile and turned to leave. While disappearing in the crowd, Ryan stood, feeling something different. The surrounding friends said nothing either. This time, no. One laughed. Finally, one of them broke the silence. "Dude, that was intense." Ryan did not answer, just stayed there, thinking of everything that had happened. Ryan Carter shook his head, still trying to soothe everything that happened. "Dude, I can't believe it was Dwayne Johnson all this time," he said, running his hand through his hair. "Did I really spoiled everything? None of your friends laughed this time." Ryan sighed. "Yes, I know. I was an idiot." Looking back at the store, he saw the employee who had confronted him before helping. Another client. For the first time in a long time, he felt a different discomfort, the need to fix things. Without saying anything, he turned and walked back to the store. His friends followed him closely, not understanding what he intended to. The employee raised her eyebrows as she saw him again. "Did you forget something?" Ryan took a deep breath. "Yes," he said with a calmer tone. "I forgot my modes." He hesitated for a moment before continuing. "I owe an apology, and perhaps even a thank you. You were right about everything. I was wrong to judge and act as if it were better than the others." The attendant blinked, surprised by the change of attitude. "Well," he said after a break. "Excuses accepted," but his eyes narrowed lightly. "But words mean nothing if you don't change the way people treat." Ryan nodded. "You are right, and I'll start right now." He turned to his friends. "Come with me." Without waiting for an answer, he went straight to the cashier and pulled his credit card. "I want to put $500 in a voucher." The employee looked at him, surprised. "Who?" "For the next person you need," he said. "Just say you came from someone who knows what it is to make mistakes and wants to do something right." His friends looked at himself, clearly not expecting this attitude. "Dude, are you serious?" asked one of them. Ryan shrugged with a small smile. "It's the least I can do." While the transaction was processed, it felt a different weight, not guilty, but relief. As he walked out of the store, he noticed the little girl and her mother, the same as Dwayne had helped before. They were sitting at a nearby table, sharing an ice cream and laughing together. Ryan stopped for a moment. The simple joy on their face made him realize the true impact of a gesture of kindness. Without thinking too much, it approached. "Excuse me." The mother looked at him, a little surprised. Ryan looked at the little girl and smiled. I just wanted to say you have an amazing daughter. He turned to his mother. And if you need anything, let me know. I would be happy to help. The woman blinked, confused, but smiled. This is very kind. Thank you. Ryan nodded, taking a step back. You don't need to say thank you. He turned and left, feeling something new inside him, a sense of purpose that had never felt before. His friends waited for him at the entrance. One of them gave a slight punch to his arm. Looks like you're becoming a new page, huh? Ryan smiled. I think it was time. Days later, the incident in the store became the subject of the city. The history of Dwayne Johnson's silent gesture spread, with employees and customers sharing what happened on social networks. Dwayne Johnson gives a humility lesson to an arrogant teenager. The headline spread fast, but Ryan's actions did not go unnoticed either. The store employee told about the voucher that he left, and customers who benefited began to thank publicly. Comments like, "Who did this? It restored my faith in humanity." They emerged on social networks. Ryan, now sitting with his friends, rolled the feed of his cell phone. I looked at the comments and felt something I'd never felt before. Pride, but not for your money or the status that was always bragging about. This time it was because it made a difference. "Hey man," said one of his friends, lightly hitting his shoulder. "Looks like your story is booming." "People so thinking you're a nice guy now," Ryan laughed softly. "Well, I think I have Dwayne Johnson to thank for it." Looking at the cell phone, he felt that the change was real. If Dwayne hadn't put me in my place, I would still be the same arrogant guy. Meanwhile, across town, Dwayne was sitting in a quiet coffee, flipping through a book. A young woman approached him nervously. "Excuse me, Mr. Johnson." Dwayne raised her eyes, offering a friendly smile. "Hi, how can I help?" Dwayne smiled as she closed the book she was reading. The young woman in front of her looked nervous, but her voice carried sincerity. "I just wanted to thank you," she said, with a slight tremor in her voice. "I was in the mall with my daughter the other day, and what you did meant more to us than you might think." Dwayne's smile deepened. "I'm glad it helped," he said simply. "The world needs more kindly." The woman smiled, her eyes shining. "I'll remember that. Do the same for someone when you have a chance," Dwayne added. She nodded. "I promise." Meanwhile, at the mall, the impact of Dwayne's actions still echoed. The store employee, inspired by what he witnessed, began to separate part of her salary to create a kindness fund to help customers in need. Even Ryan Carter, who was once a symbol of arrogance, began to find new ways to repay. He went to work as a volunteer at a community center, using his privileged position to help those who really needed. One day, while distributing food in the shelter, Ryan noticed a family figure. Dwayne Johnson was there, discreetly serving food with the other volunteers. Ryan hesitated for a moment before approaching. "Mr. Johnson." Dwayne turned and recognized him immediately. "Ryan," he said with a slight smile. "Good to see you here." Ryan returned the smile. "I just wanted to thank you for everything. You not only gave me a lesson, you changed my life." Dwayne put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "No, Ryan, you changed your life. I just gave you a push." Ryan watched Dwayne keep serving food, interacting with people as if it weren't for a celebrity, but just another human being helping others. At that moment, Ryan realized something he had never understood before. True wealth was not about money or status. It was about the impact you left on others' lives. And there, before that simple moment, he made a promise to himself. Kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything. Ryan's story shows that small gestures of kindness can turn lives. If you want to follow more inspiring stories like this, subscribe to the channel and enable notifications to not lose any.